Welcome, everyone. Really excited to get into this with you today. Our mission here is to unpack how one person's, audacious vision didn't just build an empire. It actually reshaped society, creating what we now know as the modern middle class.
Yeah, and for this deep dive, we're leaning on a great piece from LX called How Henry Ford Created the Middle Class.
Hmm.
And it's compelling because, it's not just history. It feels more like a blueprint, maybe, for economic and social change. You can still see the echoes today, really.
Absolutely. So the big question we want to explore with you is, how exactly did Henry Ford turn workers into consumers? And maybe more importantly, what can you learn from that about innovation and making a real impact today? Let's dig in. So Ford had this belief, right? It was pretty radical back then. You don't have to serve the rich to become rich. I mean, that just flew in the face of everything people thought about economics at the time.
Yeah. Oh, totally. You have to remember the context. The economic structure then was, deeply elitist. The poor, the working class, they were seen purely as labor, just a cost, not potential buyers. Ford's idea, his really revolutionary insight, was to flip that. He thought, what if we pay them more, make things cheaper, and turn them into customers?
Right. And he didn't just think it. He actually built a whole model around it, this idea that workers should earn enough to actually buy the stuff they're making.
Exactly. And that brings us to this kind of economic triad he created: wages, productivity, and demand. The Model T itself was a breakthrough, sure, but making it accessible was the real genius. Mass production drove the price down, but then, and this is the key part, by paying that famous $5 a day, which was huge then, he created his own market. His workers could suddenly afford his cars. So you get this amazing cycle: higher productivity, lower prices, and boom, huge demand from the very people building the product. That's basically the birth of mass consumerism and, the foundation for the middle class we think of today.
It really is a remarkable feedback loop, isn't it? And he also seemed to understand this idea that uh, access breeds desire. It wasn't just about affordability, it was about attainability.
Precisely. Before Ford, owning a car was like a dream, pure luxury, for the elite only. But when ordinary people could actually see a path to owning one, could realistically get one, that changes everything. It shifts lifestyles, aspirations, behavior. Suddenly, it's not just a luxury, it starts to feel like something you need, something possible.
It's kind of wild to think that back then, most of the elites, the lawmakers, they genuinely doubted working people would even want cars. Makes you wonder, right? If Ford hadn't come from that humbler background himself.
That's a great point. It was the prevailing view. And Ford, having lived closer to that reality, saw it differently. And he didn't just argue about it, he proved it. There's that story about him winning a big race. It wasn't just for show. It was about proving his cars worked, proving his whole vision was viable, really rebuilding credibility.
But pushing such a radical vision, well, it created enemies. Powerful ones. He famously plowed profits back into the company instead of paying big dividends, which really ticked off his investors. Right? Weren't the Dodge brothers involved?
Yeah.
They sued him.
They did. They wanted their payouts, the traditional return on investment. Ford wanted to grow, to cut prices, to pay workers more. Very different goals. And his response was, kind of ruthless, but brilliant strategically. He basically engineered a situation, used a bit of market panic, and managed to buy out all the minority shareholders, including the Dodges.
Wow.
Yeah. It gave him complete control. No more fighting with investors about his long-term vision versus their short-term profits.
Okay, so he navigated the business conflicts, but
Yeah.
the real engine behind it all, the thing that made the affordability possible, was in the factory. The moving assembly line, its impact was just huge.
Oh, it was absolutely revolutionary. I mean, the numbers are staggering. Production time for a Model T dropped from about 12 hours down to just 90 minutes. And it wasn't just faster, it changed who could do the work. It broke down complex tasks into simple, repetitive steps. So you didn't need highly skilled craftsmen for every stage. You could hire unskilled workers, train them quickly. That slashed labor costs, slashed production costs. That's what made the Model T so affordable for so many. It wasn't just a car factory, it was an engine lifting whole communities, really.
And this model, this Fordism, it wasn't just an American thing, was it? It had ripples globally.
That's right. If you zoom out, you see similar dynamics play out elsewhere, creating middle classes. Think about China lifting, 500 million people into urban middle class life. It was a different context, obviously, but involved controlling consumption initially, then boosting access to jobs, credit.
Yeah.
Or look at India's digital boom. Companies like Xiaomi bringing in super low-cost smartphones. Suddenly, millions had access to modern tech, services, information. It's that same principle,
Hmm.
democratizing access.
It really makes you think about who's doing that today. Who are the modern Henry Fords? Because you can definitely see echoes of his principles.
Absolutely. There's a clear common thread. Sam Walton at Walmart, right? He didn't invent stores, but he applied that same relentless focus on low prices and mass distribution, bringing stuff to rural America that wasn't there before.
Right. Or Ray Kroc.
Yeah, McDonald's. Fast, affordable, consistent food for everyone created a whole new way people ate.
And you mentioned Xiaomi's Lejeune in India earlier.
Exactly. Making smartphones something seen as advanced tech, accessible to millions who were previously priced out.
So the pattern seems to be find an underserved group, figure out how to deliver something valuable super efficiently, and radically change how they consume. But of course, it doesn't always work. Not every attempt to, let's call it, fortify an industry hits the mark. There's definitely a flip side here, isn't there?
Oh, for sure. And that raises the question, why do some of these big bets fail? Sometimes it's just bad execution. Maybe the timing's wrong. Or maybe the product, well, maybe people just didn't actually want it that much.
Like Jet.com. They tried to take on Amazon.
Yeah, aimed for massive scale, low prices, but just couldn't get there fast enough. Burned through too much cash. Or remember Better Place, building all those EV charging stations before there were really enough electric cars to use them. The timing was off.
And then you have things like, what, Segway, Google Glass.
Right. Cool tech, maybe, but kind of over-engineered solutions looking for a problem. They didn't tap into a real widespread need or desire at an accessible level.
So the takeaway isn't just make it cheaper or make it faster.
Hmm.
It seems like the real key is offering genuine value that people truly want, combined with making it genuinely accessible for them.
Exactly. Value and access together, which makes you wonder, where could the next big middle-class revolution happen? What sectors are sort of primed for that kind of disruption? I mean, you could imagine something like AI hardware maybe becoming essential, needing that kind of mass accessibility. Or think about elder care, huge growing need, often very expensive.
Yeah, elder care is a big one.
Hmm.
Or what about housing? Modular housing, maybe. Something that could make homeownership radically more affordable, like the Model T did for cars.
Mm-hmm.
That feels like a space ready for change.
So if we kind of synthesize the big takeaways here for you, Ford's real genius, maybe, wasn't just the car itself, it was seeing that link. Production efficiency plus fair wages equals a massive market. Economies really take off when ordinary working people have the power to buy things.
Right.
And that sustainable success seems to need all three: productivity, wages, and demand working together. Making big, radical bets can reshape society for the better, but only if they deliver real value and real access. History seems to reward those who figure out how to create opportunity for lots of other people.
So as you think about all this, the question becomes, will you just watch the next transformation happen? Or will you maybe lead the change?
Mm.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.